This is how I make these shaker cabinet doors. There's no floating panel in these doors, so they don't require any dado cuts or routing of the back to fit the panel in. I'm using 3/4 inch poplar here, and the first thing I do, which isn't shown here, is rip my pieces to width. Now I cut all the rails and stiles to their final lengths. Now I set up my Kreg jig and drill 4 pocket holes in all of the rails, 2 on each end. When attaching the rails to the stiles, I brush a mixture of half water, half wood glue onto the end grain. Then I press the wood glue into the pores of the wood until it's completely saturated. This is something I learned from Steve Ramsey. I use 1 1/4 inch fine thread pocket hole screws to secure the rails to the stiles. I like to use my M12 Fuel Surge impact driver on speed 3 to drive the screws. Typically, when I'm using pocket hole screws to join 3/4 inch plywood, I like to use a drill with a mechanical clutch, but since this is hardwood, it seems to withstand the force from the impact driver. If you listen, you can hear a distinctive change in pitch that the impact driver makes. This tells me that the screw is completely seated in the pocket hole. When sanding, I like to use a piece of drawer liner that I spray down with water. This creates friction between my workpiece and the bench, making for less movement while sanding. Once everything's glued together, I sand the side with the pocket holes flat with 120 grit sandpaper. Next, I cut the panels for the back. I'm using 1/5 inch hardwood underlayment. I purchased this from Home Depot. It's only $30 for a 4-foot by 8-foot sheet, and it has one clean side that's perfect for painting. When cutting sheet goods like this, I use a website called OptiCutter. I input the dimensions of my stock panels and the dimensions and quantity of my desired panels. What this does, it makes for the most efficient use of material. OptiCutter is completely free to use, and you can save and edit your plans. I'll put a link to this in the description. What I like about this method of making shaker cabinets is the ease of cutting the panels to size. Instead of cutting a dado groove in each piece, then having to calculate the inner panel dimensions, I simply adjust my fence to the length and width of the final dimensions. Now I apply a ton of wood glue to the back side of the assembled rails and stiles. Then I place the panel onto the back and secure each corner with a 5/8 inch brad nail. Now I clamp down some pieces of scrap wood to secure the panel. Once the glue's dry, I use a flush trim bit to clean up the glue squeeze out and trim down the panels. Now I take them to the table saw and I trim off 1/8 of an inch from each side, so all the rails and stiles measure 2.5 inches wide. Here I'm applying masking tape to where I'll be drilling for the hinges. I think this helps to prevent tear out. This is my first time installing concealed hinges. I'm using the Milescraft Euro hinge jig, and overall I'm very happy with the results. It gives you the option of insetting the hinges at either 3 or 4 inches, but I had to place the hinges 4 inches from the edge in order to avoid hitting the pocket hole screws. Once I drill for all the hinges, I use my router to add a 45-degree chamfer. This helps to hide the plywood edge. Now I sand the face of the cabinets with 120 grit sandpaper. Here I'm marking for the cabinet knobs. Again, I use masking tape to help prevent tear out. I use a marker and a center punch to mark my drilling location. Because I don't have a reliable drill press, I'm using a Milescraft drill block to drill straight holes. I place some scrap wood beneath the cabinet to prevent tear out on the back side. Then I line up my drill bit with the mark, and I use the drill block to guide my drill bit. I install the hinges by widening the pre-drilled holes. I purchased these hinges from Amazon. They're much cheaper than concealed hinges from a big box store. I'll put a link to these and all the other tools I used in this video in the description down below. After removing the hinges, I primed one of the doors. I'm using a Wagner Flexio 2500, and painting definitely is not my strong suit. A creator by the name of Small Fry Creations made a video that really helped me to understand how this sprayer works. I'll put a link to this video in the description. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to see more like it, subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next time.